Today, we're going to be talking about keeping our volunteers engaged at the shelter during the busy holiday season when everybody's spread pretty thin. We can utilize something as simple as coming up with some great enrichment strategies and organizing some really fun things for that. So today, that's what I wanted to go over. I'm really excited to get into this, but for those of you who may not have been here before, this might be your first time watching. Welcome. I'm Laurie. I run the More Adoptions, Less Burnout group here on Facebook. And this is a place for us all to come together as shelter folks to talk about how we can improve behavioral operations and behavior strategies for the dogs in our shelter. And we cover almost every topic there within that. And today, and I also own Shelter Behavior Integrations, in which I help do consulting and strategizing for shelters, specifically to incorporating more behavior forward strategies. So thank you guys for being here today. I wanted to give you some updates winding down, 2025 and entering 2026. I wanted to spend some time looking over what's gone really well this year, the impact of the group, and everything that I'm going to be hoping to do in 2026, and really making sure that I'm focusing on getting information to everybody in the group and beyond for increasing welfare in our shelters through behavior programs. And so I've got a couple really cool updates for you guys. Starting in January, all of the Lawless off leash monthly webinars live. So when they happen are going to be totally free of charge. I want to make sure that this webinar series is able to be seen and heard from anybody who wants to join. Of course, I do try to limit the folks that join that to about 50 to 60 people. It's definitely been growing, but I do want more people to be able to join, and I don't want to have to put a cap on it. I also feel like the information is very valid to get out there, so that's going to be free. And then instead of having just a general library where folks can go in and do a one-time fee purchase, which I know some of you have already done and you're not losing access to that, that library will still be available. But instead of just having the singular library by itself, I've realized that some people definitely want to be able to just maybe look up and purchase individual webinars. So those webinars individually, the replays are going to be $5 a piece. And then the access to the full library is going to be $40 moving forward. So again, if you're already in the library and you're already a part of it, you definitely still have access to that. Nobody's losing anything. And if you're interested in getting into the library now, I would do that before the end of the year. So that way you do get in at that $20 pricing that it's currently sitting at. But in the future, if you're not in the library and you want to just watch a singular replay, I am working on building a section on the website that allows you to just purchase those individually. So that's a huge improvement and something I think is going to be really great. I might have to go in and fix a setting because I think I jumped the gun a little bit and changed it to 40. But after this call, I'm going to put it back down to 20 until December 31st. And then on January 1st, that will go up to 40 for the full library. We have about 14 to 15 videos in there now. So it's starting to become quite a great resource. So really excited about that. I also wanted to talk about a really cool idea that I came up with after seeing some of the really amazing responses. I've been trying really hard to be a little bit more focused on posting in the group more regularly and prompting people to give their stories and information. It would be really cool to once a month have somebody who's done something cool at their own shelter to incorporate behavior come on as a guest for one of our weekly lives. So what I'm going to start doing is putting out an application that people can submit a cool story from their shelter, and then I will feature one of our group members for one of these weekly lives at least once a month. That way, everybody here can kind of see and hear what everybody else is doing at their individual shelters, and we can become this kind of awesome pool of sharing. So instead of it's just me talking all the time, I really would love to see what everybody in a group is doing, whether they're taking the information from me or they've learned it from somewhere else and we're able to apply it to increase behavioral welfare at their shelter. So I'm really excited to begin offering that as a monthly series of stories from the shelter, stories from the kennel, whatever we want to call it. If you have a better name, you guys know I'm not the most creative. I'm more of a logistics person. So yeah, so that's going to be coming up for 2026. Really excited to create more community and hear from more folks who are boots on the ground doing the hard work every single day. And then finally, I think I mentioned this on the last call. I'm waiting to get an appointment and they wanted me to actually come in today. And I was like, I'm not skipping another live. So I hope you guys are grateful I'm here today. I'm grateful that you're here. What I'm going to be doing moving forward also is now I'm going to be offering 1 hour consulting calls. So this is going to be a $200 cost. And what that means is that anybody can get on my schedule at any time. So if you have maybe a difficult dog in your kennel, or you want to run through a behavior modification plan, or you want to show me what your enrichment schedule looks like and see how you want to enhance it. Maybe we want to discuss some post-adoption plans. Maybe there's a project you're thinking about and you want to flush the details out with somebody that has a lot of sheltering experience. That's what those phone calls are for. And that way I can kind of make sure that, nobody has to like invest in this whole big program for me to come out. We can just start talking remotely and I can help support you from afar. I actually already have that listed on my website now. I'll be sending out some emails about that. I've already gotten a couple people to sign up, and I'm working currently with somebody on helping to create a memorandum of agreement with a municipal shelter and a newly formed nonprofit. And what that's going to look like for them, I have another one coming up where we're going to be talking about what our current behavior evaluation process for dogs looks like and to see if they can make improvements or add additional things to it, or maybe remove pieces of it that they don't find as relevant anymore. So I think that's going to be a really cool thing to be able to connect with more people, share my experience, and help people move their programs forward at a lesser entry level cost. So if you know anybody who's looking for assistance with small projects, this is a really great way to just get on my calendar and we can have that one-on-one time. So that's some cool stuff coming up for 2026. Really excited to share that with you. And so what we'll do now is actually get into the call of what we want to talk about today, which is our enrichment. So there's a couple things about the holidays that make shelters challenging. One is that typically we're seeing less people coming in for adoptions because they're busy either Christmas shopping or going to parties. They have other things they're thinking about. So they're not necessarily thinking about dog adoptions or going to adopt their new best friend. In some cases, we might see that people want to come in and get a gift or adopt a dog as a gift for a family member or a friend of theirs. Those might be some adoptions you have coming in. I'm a really big advocate of not declining people who want to get dogs as gifts, but maybe finding other ways that you can utilize that momentum and that interest. Maybe we don't want to give somebody a dog necessarily to gift to somebody else, but we can work out something with them, like setting an appointment, creating some type of a gift card so that the person can come in and find the pet that fits for them. I'm a really, really big advocate of promoting animals as gifts, especially when the recipient is in the know that a gift of an animal is coming so they can prepare for it. There's a lot of different data that goes back and forth about that, but to ensure that we're not going to get a return or it's not going to be a good fit, a great way to do that is just to work within those conversations and figure out what feels comfortable for your shelter, your organization, and the potential adopter. So don't turn those folks away. Figure out ways to creatively work with them in a way that feels comfortable. Big advocate. Other than that, what we're often looking at and thinking about is how do we keep folks engaged that are volunteering with our shelters because maybe their timelines are, they have a lot of things coming up. We're seeing less dogs getting adopted. So oftentimes our kennels are a little fuller. We may have less people to get the dogs out and offer more support on a day-to-day basis. However, what we can do is think about creating some type of an event or multiple smaller events in which, or even somebody who might offer to do something at their house in a way that can create some really out of the box fun enrichment for dogs. One of the things that we should remember about volunteers is yes, they want to come in and help our dogs. They want to help move the mission of the organization forward. We want to see more dogs get adopted. But at the end of the day, our volunteers, I think all of you really like to see dogs happy and not struggling and stressed. So one of the ways that we can do that in a really effective way is to create some additional fun festive themed enrichment items and creating some event and excitement around it. Some things that I have seen other shelters implement and even doing some quick Google searching is we can create some items that are very close to the holidays. So thinking about something like letters from Santa. So maybe we create, right, in my head, I'm like, we create an event where we have chosen 3 or 4 different enrichment items we want to build. And we set it up so volunteers all come in and we have all the supplies ready for them. And then we do something called Letters to Santa. And if we think about the volunteers as Santa, they can pick the letters from each individual dog out of a hat. And then they can make an enrichment item for a specific dog, and they can be the Santa for that particular dog. So, a letters from to Santa is a really fun one. You could even get a Santa hat and like have them draw a name out of the hat with like the dog's wish list. So maybe for your rambunctious pit bull, it's going to be a giant busy box with cheese all over it. Or maybe for your old Maltese, they want a licky mat so that they can lick and have a good time. But the idea is you're getting the volunteers engaged in this fun activity in which they're making enrichment for a particular dog, and the randomizing of it kind of keeps it fun. And you're creating also that centered group activity. In addition to volunteers wanting to be obviously there for the animals, volunteers really tend to join animal organizations, not just for the animals, but to create and become part of a community and build camaraderie with one another. Oftentimes, whether you're volunteering at an animal shelter or maybe you're volunteering at a food shelf, you're doing it because you also want to get out of your house and meet people who have similar interests, right? So having some activities in which you can get volunteers together for a singular purpose is a really great way to help build relationship and bonding and increasing fun, right? Especially if we have people coming in and they're usually working different shifts and they might see each other in passing. This is a really good way to get everybody together in a room to do one really cool thing. Another really great idea that I think in my head for enrichment that would be super fun for volunteers to put together is getting a bunch of boxes donated from, it could be your local supermarket has cardboard boxes, or your local store has cardboard boxes, and asking them to just leave them for you to pick up. And then what you can do is you can get themed tissue paper. So something that's got candy canes or is red and green or whatever colors, or if you want to go Hanukkah colored, you could do like blue and white. And what you could go ahead and do is wrap the boxes and make it like little Christmas presents. And then inside of the boxes, you can maybe put milk bones or pepperonis and then maybe a new toy. So they get to open their box on Christmas. And so if you have a shelter that has maybe 100 dogs, right? You could have one big event where everybody comes in and they wrap a Christmas box for all the individual dogs, and each dog on Christmas morning gets a delivery of these items, and then they can tear into it and do whatever they want. So I love the idea of like the unwrapping of a Christmas present. And we did do that at a shelter I worked at a few years ago, and it was so much fun to see them all. And the ones who were having trouble, we'd go in and like just rip the tissue paper a little bit and help them open the box. And that created some human interaction with the dogs on Christmas. So that's a really fun activity. Another one that you can do is also like a candy cane themed. We all know like peppermint is not great to give to dogs, but we can use yogurt, like a yogurt mixture with berries or a puree of some sort, and mix it in so it's a little swirled. And then we can fill our Kongs or topples and we can do things like that, really making it so it's themed and it's something fun to do both for the volunteers who can participate in making these items, but also for the animals. If you have any really cool themes or ideas, I would love for you to post them in the chat. There's so many people out there that make such cool things. And so if you have done something Christmas themed, enrichment wise, definitely post it in the chat. And then maybe we could even make like a handbook, which would be really fun. The biggest thing we want to think about is how are we going to put this together and recruit people to help us? So I would recommend potentially doing it on days where you typically will have the most people there. So if you think for your particular shelter, it's a really big shelter and getting everybody in one space at one time can be really challenging, then maybe what we do is we just set up like an hour event, maybe 2 or 3 times before Christmas, and then keep the pile somewhere safe. Maybe your shelter is already doing like a themed Christmas party that you might throw for your volunteers. So it could be a really fun activity to do at an actual Christmas party where everybody can start putting things together. And the other ideas might be is to get this out into the community. So maybe your volunteers that you do have, they can't spare the time and you're running around. One event that I put together at a shelter was not Christmas themed, but it was really great and I think is something that or especially around this time of year, your local news organizations, your local blogs, your influencers are all looking for ideas of how they can make holiday themed stories or posts or reels, and trying to figure out like what's the best way to reach those people so they can not only spread the word of this holiday themed idea, but your shelter and the animals within them themselves. So if you're thinking about putting something together, that is going to be really helpful. We can put out like a quick press release for it, and then hopefully somebody picks it up and wants to come in and video it while it's happening, and they can do a quick little news story. So, as an example, at a shelter, when I was the adoption manager for the dogs at one particular shelter, we had a lot of seniors at the time. So, I put together an event called Old Dogs Can Learn New Tricks, and I assigned a volunteer to each of the senior dogs to teach them something new. It was like, you know, can you touch your note like a hand target? One I taught to like catch a ball. One of the other volunteers taught a dog to weave through some cones. Like it wasn't anything crazy. But what I did is I organized this. Each volunteer got to pick a new behavior to teach one of these senior old dogs and teaching them a new trick. And we had two news stations show up because they thought it was such a fun, quirky event, and it was something that was different, and they were looking for some fluff stories. These folks are oftentimes looking to round out some of those harder news stories, especially with all the crazy stuff going on right now, and have those nice fluff stories so that people aren't just totally deprived of happiness every time they turn on the evening news. So if you're thinking about putting some event together, you can do a quick press release, reach out to your media contacts, let them know the date and time of the event. And even if you film it and send them the clips, because there's not as many reporters as there used to be, they might still pick it up as a news story and get your shelter and therefore the animals exposure to getting the adoption. So that was a really fun one. And I think you could probably use that same plan to actively put together Christmas packing day for the shelters that are, or the animals that are shelters. So maybe the Saturday before Christmas, you open from 10 to 12, you set up 3 pop-up tables, you cover it with enrichment items, and then you have people come and just make stuff as they go. So there's a good idea for you to kind of just get not only your own volunteers engaged, but it's a really great way to get the community engaged, offering it up to other people and the general public to come in and make enrichment items. And that can also encourage people to come and want to volunteer. So you could also potentially turn that into a recruitment event as well. So some ideas for you guys that I have seen work really well are scout troops, schools. So you could reach out to schools and see if maybe there's an upcoming art class where kids can make something and you can provide the supplies. Oftentimes, workplaces will have volunteer opportunities. Right here in Vermont, we have an organization or a company called dealer.com, and they're like a tech company. They have volunteer initiatives. In the past, they have sent folks to the shelter to repaint a bathroom, or they'll send 3 or 4 people in because we've got like this excess pile of laundry. And so people in the workplace will sign up for these volunteer opportunities and then they can come in and do them. So this is another example of how you can think about reaching to your outside community for help in doing one of these events or in creating some of these items if you can't spare your own volunteers to do it. It's a really good way to kind of bring the community in for your particular shelter. So when you're thinking about these different ways that you can keep your volunteers engaged, I think these enrichment strategies can be very helpful. So that's stuff we can think about from like a bulk perspective or getting things done all at one time. But how do we keep folks engaged on the day-to-day and not getting lost in the shuffle of the holiday functions? If somebody says that they can't make it on what would maybe be their regular shift due to a holiday party, or like their kids are not in school, so they have to stay home, see if they can shift their shift to something else and say, I understand you can't come in this week, but what about, can you come in 2 hours this week? So offering them more flexibility in their schedule, or even asking, hey, do you think you could help us find some coverage? Do you know anybody else that would want to come in and cover your shift? Is a really good idea. You don't want to obviously put all that work onto your volunteers, but For some shelters, and if we have volunteers that communicate really well together, they might say, you know what, like I can contact George and he's actually usually available on Monday mornings, and that's usually my shift. So maybe he'll pick up an extra shift this week. And again, don't be scared to send out emails for help on those days that are all of a sudden everybody's not there. So this happened a few days ago. I've actually been assisting in the mornings at my local shelter here because they're short staffed. And I wasn't even supposed to be there that day. I showed up by accident because Laurie, ADHD. I was supposed to be there Thursday and I showed up Tuesday morning. But it actually worked out really good because there was a bad snowstorm. All the volunteers weren't able to make it in that morning. And so I happened to be there, which was really good because I can clean a kennel of 12 in like an hour. So it takes most people more than that. But, what we did is just let everybody, I asked the volunteer person if they could send out an email and see if anybody could come in. And within an hour or two other volunteers showed up. Shy away from asking for additional help when you find yourself short-staffed because you never know what people's schedules look like. And then thank them for it. One of the things that I think is also very critical when we are asking our volunteers to be present with us during the holiday season is ensuring that we're giving them acknowledgement that they are taking their time, often from their jobs, their families. Maybe they're coming in on Christmas Eve or even maybe Christmas Day. And we want to just acknowledge that that is really special. And that is what makes our shelter and communities feel so whole, is because we do work together even during times in which we would most likely prefer to be elsewhere. And so some ideas that you can do for that could be a thank you card from the individual dogs. So you could go around, have somebody take paw prints, and then for each of the volunteers that come during the week of Christmas, have somebody in the admin office sit down and write some thank you from Mike the Boston Terrier or Kesha the crazy cattle dog in the kennel or what have you, but getting something with your shelter's logo on it and something signed from whoever the volunteer coordinator is or the president or whoever, giving them that acknowledgement. Other things that you can do are you can come up with some cool items. And I know it's getting close to the holidays, but stickers are actually, especially you order through like Vistaprint, can come pretty quickly. So you could do something like Christmas Walking Warrior or something with a paw print and then the shelter's logo on it and give them a sticker to put on their water bottle, right? You can give them something small, cute, and relatively affordable that they can kind of show off as like a badge of like, wow, like I feel so good to be part of this organization. And look at me, I've got this, I'm part of this club, of dog walkers that came in on Christmas. We are the weekend warriors, right? All of us who have gotten into sheltering knew what we were giving up. Maybe we didn't, but once we were there and realized, well, if I don't get into work today, the dogs aren't going to get out. I remember one time when I was working at a shelter in Connecticut, I lived about an hour away, and there was a blizzard that came in, and nobody could get there except for me because I happened to have a boyfriend at the time who had a Jeep. And it was like, well, do I want to get up and drive an hour to Norwalk from Danbury? And they had actually had a snow ban out, and I got pulled over by a police officer. It was a driving ban. And he was trying to tell me that I needed to leave and wanted to give me a ticket. And I convinced him I was an essential worker and had to go in. But I showed up, I was the only one there. I had to run through and like feed all the dogs and feed all the cats. And yeah, it was really hard, but like we are the little warriors. We are the ones that come in and make sure that the dogs get fed because they don't know. Anyway, off that tangent. So having something to reward our volunteers for doing that extra and for going above and beyond is really helpful. So additional ideas could be something like, I don't know, on Facebook, you have those little circles that can go around your profile picture. I walk dogs on Christmas for X animal shelter this year, holiday elf, something cute, something funny. You could do a Facebook acknowledgement post and have somebody go around and take pictures of everybody working in the kennels during that holiday week. So just different things to really encourage them to continue to want to come back, even on those days that are really hard and we may not necessarily want to be there. So the other thing that you would want to consider if we're going to do something that's going to heavily incorporate the volunteers is really probably thinking about assigning a point person or maybe two. So one person might be handling the logistics of organizing the volunteers, figure out where you're going to do it. So let's say we want to have an enrichment building event. We need to figure out what space, how many people can fit in that space, etc. And then we need to have the person who's thinking about the supplies that are needed, how many supplies, where are we getting them, where are we sourcing things from? So contacting local stores and saying like, hey, can you save some boxes? Or maybe our local delis that might be throwing out egg cartons, or we might, so basically, I think you're going to want to have the point person that's for the volunteers, and then you're going to want to have a person who is organizing, gathering those supplies. And it's pretty amazing once you open these things up to and contacting a couple businesses and tell them it's for shelter animals. You'd be surprised how quickly people just fork things over to you. Everybody, especially during the holiday season, wants to hand stuff over and figure out ways to help. So, for example, a local sanctuary here that does farm animals, they're interested in taking everybody's Halloween pumpkins and then distributing them to the farm animals. So they ended up finding a local business who collected like 100, I think it was like ended up being 150 pumpkins. And then they came with a U-Haul truck and picked them all up and brought it to the sanctuary. But the entire community really came and chipped in and had this really special event. And then, of course, there was a news story about it because 100 pumpkins were being moved on a U-Haul trailer across town, and it's Burlington, Vermont. So that was kind of a spectacle. And the sanctuary then posted all the pictures and videos of the animals eating the pumpkins, which was really cute and funny. And so not only did it create a really amazing opportunity for the animals to engage in something fun, it really did bring the community together. And then it again promoted the sanctuary, its mission, and its goals. So everybody who's involved in that can feel really good about it, and it can really help your volunteers fully embrace what's going on and want to do more for the shelter itself and for the animals. So I don't want you to forget about the cats. Obviously, I'm very dog oriented, but cats as well can have great enrichment items too. So you may even set up a dog and a cat table just to kind of even things out. Or if you have smallies at your shelter, the ferrets might want something like liver treats. Your bunnies might want some fresh dandelions. Maybe you can do something a little more Christmas themed that bunnies like. But yeah, it's a really good idea to just think outside of the box. So it's already December 4th. You've got a couple weeks. If you put your thinking hats on and get one or two people together, I think, this is one of those times of year where you can pull things like this together pretty quickly. Between using social media and putting like 2-point people in person, I would approach a management team member and say, hey, I'd like to plan this. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be at the shelter. Maybe you have somebody who volunteers and happens to have a pretty big house or has a larger gathering space, and maybe they would be open to organizing something for people to come there and then just transport things to the shelter. But there's lots of ideas out there for you to do this, to keep your volunteers engaged, to support your mission, and really make it fun for everybody. When I did the event of the teaching the old dogs new tricks, I mean, it was great. I heard people talked about that for months and how they wanted to do more things. And we ended up doing a couple more. Like we did a scent work one, but the old dog's new tricks, if you can kind of find something themed wise, it can be really helpful. And I think that's where the holiday season can really be one of those times where I think a lot of news organizations are looking for those fluff pieces. So make your organization the fluff. So that's all I've got for today. I'm just really excited to get to hang out with you guys again. I got some really cool stuff coming up. Next week, we're going to be going over. Oh, we're going to go back to doing some ethical dilemma stuff. So that'll be fun. If you guys didn't see the first one, I recommend going back and checking it out in the Laurie Lives library. I intended that to be initially a 45-minute one and realized I was almost onto an hour, and then it was going to probably be a 2 or 3 part series. And so we're in that Lawless Live next week. We're going to be kind of building off of that first one and talking about all the challenges and difficult decisions and ambiguous decisions we have to sometimes make in shelters. They can sometimes feel uncomfortable. Sometimes you don't know if you've made the right choice. And so it's kind of good to remember to have those conversations. It's a heavy one right before the holidays, but I'm also hoping that having these difficult and more challenging conversations help you feel a little bit better, because I know when I'm in some of these, I start to even question my own experience. I will sometimes question myself about whether the right choice is made. And I've been doing this for a long time, and so have many of you. So it's kind of nice to share those challenges so that we're all feeling like we can understand each other and that you're not alone in that. So I think that'll be another fun one. I'll keep it a little light right before the holidays, but I won't go too deep. And then, yeah, I'm going to be taking a little bit of time off before Christmas, during Christmas, I should say, Christmas time, New Year's, and then we'll be back in January. And yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to keep going with our group into next year. If there are speakers that you want to see on the Lawless Off Leash series, please shoot me an email or feel free to just comment into the Facebook group or send a Facebook message because I'm always looking for people to bring on. I have a few people who I'm currently reaching out to for next year, but if you have somebody that you're dying to see, please let me know and I'll reach out to them myself. It was a pleasure seeing you guys this week, and I will see you next week on the next episode. Keep an eye out for those applications for the Laurie Lives because I'm really looking forward to featuring guests at least once a month so you can share your stories with our group too. All right, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care. Bye.